Hey everybody, today I wanted to go over another ASL game. This is from the round of 24 Group B, match number 2. As you can see, it's between sSak and Free on Eclipse. Now, the last game that I went over in depth was Light versus Ruin. And in that game, we saw how Light came back from having a really terrible early game. He fell very far behind Ruin and then ended up winning. And I think that there was a lot to learn there, a lot to look at, like the theory behind the matchup and everything. Now, this one is the exact opposite. sSak versus Free. sSak basically has the best opening that you can really get on Eclipse against a Protoss player and manages to lose it. Now, just to put this out here, these guys are both ASL quality players. A lot of people rank sSak around 6th best Terran in the world right now, and Free is pretty darn high up there for Protoss. He's been playing very well recently. So let's go ahead and get into this. Now, we'll jump around a little bit. The first thing that you're going to notice is that there is no offensive gas that occurs. Free does not opt to do this. I think at pro level play, like obviously you need to rotate your build order some, but it is a little bit surprising, I think. Now you see he went Nexus first. Now sSak is actually gearing up for a gasless expansion. One where, you know, he's not taking his gas and he is just going to make the command center on like 15-ish supply. Here he's sending down the SCV. And yeah, he'll get that command center started up. Now, these two builds going at it, like this is a pretty normal couple of build orders that you'll see just on just about any map, but not as often here, right? Like there's so much gas stealing that goes on this map that it's definitely not common, but the matchup between these build orders is actually completely fine. It's pretty close to even. It's like small advantage Protoss, but it's not really big enough to complain about or talk about all that much. So you see a pretty standard opener. Okay, so let's get past there. Just jump forward a little bit. I mean, he's just keeping the SCV alive as long as he can, watching for tech. Obviously, Free is being as greedy as possible. You have to get that bunker up because of the Zealot that can walk over. He has started his first factory. Pulling that racks down, we see. And we'll get a little bit further forward here. Okay, so I can see in sSak's base, we have 2 factories, right? So that's pretty normal as well. You'll always go for very quick 2 factories after you have a gasless expansion opener. The question is like what you want to do with this. Do you want to do a pressure build? Do you want to do a macro build? Because just because you went 2 factories, it doesn't mean that it's actually for pressure or attacking. Here, this is a wonderful scout, right? So you can already see how well things are going for sSak. His gas was not stolen. He was able to get away on even footing. Now he's scouted that it's 2-gate. He knows the exact timing of the robotics. All very powerful things. We see him at home. You can tell by the mini-map that he's getting 2 add-ons here. Yeah, already upgrading, so that's definitely going to be Vulture upgrades, and there's the Academy, right? So he can get a ton of intel. Let's jump up. Looks like some Vulture upgrades. Has that single siege tank just in case the goons come up. And the Vulture's actually slipping right out. Really, really nice here for sSak. Okay, so here he tries to run by. And, of course, has to run away. Sees the probe. Actually, he must have been back at his base doing something. But he will come up and sees the probe make the Nexus, right? But he's already got his command center started, okay? So this is not an aggressive build by any means from Free. They both went for basically, yeah, in fact, they both went for the fastest natural expansions that you can get with each race, which is a Nexus first and a gasless expansion. And sSak has started the fastest 3rd command center I've ever seen. Okay, that's like, so this 3rd command center was started around 6 minutes, and he sees that there's a 3rd command center on the way for Free. So it's like, okay, well, Free is skimping a lot as well. So the odds of this being punished what sSak is doing, like this super, super greedy fast third, not very high. So you can see we've jumped ahead just a little bit here. He's staying pretty active with his vultures. You can see on the mini map all sorts of mines laid around. He scans and actually sees the shuttle as well, so he's going to know that Reaver is going to be coming. And again, this is, like, look at the wealth of information. He hasn't been punished. He's got the quickest third that we've basically ever seen. Look at that. The armory coming up, engineering bay to help block that, just kind of clearing things out, getting ready to go into the next part of the game. And look at the minimap. The coverage of mines is amazing. You literally can't get out of here without going over some of his mines. So full vision. He's going to know when free is coming. Just like a beautiful, beautiful opener here from sSak. All right, let's just jump forward a little bit. All right, he's free now, clearing out the mines, but this is why the mines are so beautiful. Because now he sees that he's coming. He even sends the vultures down to double check, because occasionally you get someone that clears those mines, then turns around and goes somewhere else. But he runs down, he checks, he sees it coming, he knows approximately how many goons are coming, and the fact that there's Reaver Shuttle. Now, also look at this, a non-full walled third base. That'll come into play in a moment here. Just to show you how ridiculously awesome this opener is for sSak. Okay, so he's sieged up, and look at this. 2, 3 probes. Like, this is amazing damage. 4, 5, 6. Well, are we going to kill any more? Okay, so let's call it 7 probes, because we know those vultures are going to kill a little bit more. I don't think we're going to look at them again. So it's like 7 or 8 probes killed at that third base. His third base was actually started before Freeze. And now watch this attack that comes in. Free is diving in with a speed shuttle. And look at this great defense from sSak. The double turret, going to knock that down super quickly. Turns and targets immediately. SCV's instantly on the ramp. Look at that. Walks into a mine. There's 5 goons left over. He lost almost no workers here. And the supply is even. We're at 8 minutes and 40 seconds. And Terran supply is even with Protoss supply. This is a very rare thing to see. Normally, Protoss is up a substantial amount by now. But this right here is the best opener that we had on Eclipse TVP all season long. You know, I'm someone who watches like a lot of pro games. I have to say, like, you don't see Terrans in such a good position this early into the game against Protoss, unless it, you know, obviously there can be situations where it's like some sort of rush and a ton of probes die or something. But this was like a pretty straight up game from both sides. Okay, so from here, as I mentioned, sSak is going to lose this. Okay, we'll jump forward just a little bit. Just kind of get the overarching themes here. We're adding on factories. There's the starport, so he's going to continue his upgrades. You see a speed vulture actually coming down, scouting for this immediately as it's being made. So that's some great sense from sSak. Really understands the timings of this. Don't forget, by the way, that we have mines leading up to the 4th base area. So that's why he kind of knew that down at 6 o'clock-ish is where Free would be trying to take a base, because you would always be trying to take a 4th here. sSak is scanning around. Everything's looking pretty good for him. Sees another shuttle. He sees the Templar Archives. Sees the Spinning Forge. Okay? Now, this looks like, if you look at this game, he has speed already on the shuttles. We've already seen, obviously, a Reaver that was suicided in. We see the Templar Archives now. Normally, you don't go speed shuttle directly into Arbiter. Normally, this will be High Templars next, with multiple speed shuttles. So I'm sure that sSak is looking at this and thinking that that's probably what he's up against. And in fact, it is what he's up against. So a little bit of an escort over here. Free gets that set up. And we'll jump ahead a little bit to get to the more interesting parts. And you can see the supply, by the way, neck and neck. Again, very, very good for Terran in this situation. Okay, here comes the double speed shuttle into the natural. He actually has his floating building just slightly off to the side, so he's missing a tiny bit of vision on the side. See how we actually missed some shots. But these are, I mean, this is a good storm drop. A decent amount of SCVs were killed for sure. And he actually starts running from the main because he's not 100% sure there's not one in there. Clears those up. So that was, first off, that was a good move from Free overall, I think. Like, he did a decent amount of damage to the SCVs. This is not the end of the world for sSak. By the way, it looks like 7 factories or 8 factories right now for sSak. Okay, some Vulture rotations. Just laying mines, kind of checking on bases. It's 4 base against 3, so everything's totally fine. Even supply still. Now, don't forget that sSak lost a chunk of SCVs there, so army supply-wise, he's doing really, really, really well right now. Yeah, like, there's no other way to put it. Like, at 12 minutes, you want 140 supply. We're at 1240, and we're at 160, and Free is only at 160, which is amazing. Protoss can max out at 12 minutes. So this game has been very, very favorable for sSak. But Free actually chose a great tech route to fight back in a game like this, and honestly, a great tech route for this map, which is those speed shuttles with high Templars. We already saw the decent storm drop that he did. Nothing to super write home about, but reasonable. Now let's take a look at what goes wrong here for sSak coming up pretty soon. See just the double forge and everything. Okay, ready? Now here it is. sSak is actually now up supply, and he's coming across the map. He has looked at this and decided, you know what? I've done a lot of damage to him. My economy is rolling. I'm macroing very well. My army is gigantic. Let's attack. Now, this is where things go wrong, because when you're playing against high Templars, you can't really just attack. If you're ahead in TVP and your opponent does not have spellcasters, attacking is amazing. You can kind of roll through things like Zealots and Dragoons, but high Templars whittle things down very, very well. So let's take a look at this battle, okay? So right before anything's really lost here, maybe that Vulture has already died, but whatever, 182 to 179. Okay, so that's, let's just remember, they're basically, let's call it the same supply. So he starts to come up, and here comes the shuttles just kind of dropping off. Now, he can technically shoot the shuttles down if he shift clicks on these Goliaths here, right? Like, you can do that. Occasionally, it's actually better if you know you're not going to make a sizable difference targeting those down to allow the Goliaths to actually just help kill off the ground units. That's actually something I see Flash do more than anybody, which I always thought was interesting. But here we also see the Dragoons are coming up the ramp. The Zealots are kind of behind. So a lot of Goons are getting splattered, but we're losing a decent amount of Vultures here as well. So you see the storms coming down. His tank count is getting whittled down. More storms. And suddenly we go from... And hold on. Let's just finish this battle. Okay, let's call that the end of the battle. We went from both players at about 180 to now 116 against 145. Okay, so that was a minus 65 supply battle for sSak and a minus 25 battle for Free. Okay, so those were the swings we saw. Now, what else is happening during this time? Free is taking a 5th base in the regular 4th base area. Yeah, what's sSak doing? We don't see the additional command centers or anything like that. It's not a good situation for him. So he lined everything up for this attack, but going forward, when you are in against the high Templar tech is extremely difficult. You have to be really slow and methodical against these high Templar based plays because they're very good at taking battles. They're not good at killing Terran, but they're good at defending against the attacks from Terran. That's where you're really going to see the Protoss player gain their value, is when Terran is attacking. And I think that you saw that there very, very clearly, right? Like, it basically against the high Templar based tech, if you watch the very best Terran players in the world right now, most people are starting to kind of cut the map up a little bit against plays like this. You're not actually under that much pressure to go kill your opponent, because while this is a very strong army that Free has, the actual scaling of it doesn't go up over time. Right? As long as you're not attacking into it like sSak did, the army doesn't scale unbelievably. And to kind of make this clear, what does that mean? It's like, okay, well, even if we're maxed out with this army, and you have however many High Templars you want, it's not getting substantially stronger. Whereas you look at something like Arbiters scale better than High Templars. Like, High Templars are always great. They're always useful. They should be added into every composition eventually. But it's not getting to the point where you're like, I can't stop that. Right? Like, they aren't going to be able to kill you if you're spread and sieged and have good supply at home. Whereas things like Arbiters can run into recalls, especially carriers. Arbiters are actually much less scaling than like a carrier, right? Like, if you have 12 carriers with full upgrades, well, that's like infinity power, right? So that's what I'm kind of talking about as far as scaling goes. So you're not actually under pressure to go down and kill them off. And now that he's tried that, he's definitely behind right here. But this is actually quite a long game that sSak fights back really well. And then we're going to see something similar once again. So let's jump forward a little bit. I love this. The depots placed there, really nice. You see just more and more shuttles. And the thing is, like I said, like adding on those more shuttles, it's not necessarily like a bad thing. But it's not like you look at that and say, oh God, now he's got 8 shuttles. It's kind of like you're going to treat that the same as if he has 5 shuttles, right? Or 4 shuttles. Excuse me. Right, so some cannons going down and everything. sSak is just rotating vultures a whole lot. The speed shuttle's running around. He has started his 4th command center, by the way, at that 3rd base. He's had to really focus on macroing. He's still not up, by the way, to the supply that he was at the beginning of that battle, right? Let's not forget, he was at 182. He's only at 162 right now. But it takes a long time to rebuild all these tanks. He has 3 add-ons. I can see that on the mini-map. But yeah, it takes a while. Okay, so we have a million speed shuttles coming in. This is actually kind of hilarious. How many? Excuse me. I'm almost getting hiccups from watching the amount of speed shuttles that are diving into his base. So that is a lot of Zealots and High Templars. He's getting a decent amount of the SCVs. He's going over after the Armory. And he's actually doing an attack of the 4th base at the same time, which I think is an important part of this. But I think that was a little bit overkill from Free, honestly. I don't think that it's very different than if he takes half as many shuttles and runs in. And now he's like kind of trapped with that, right? Still up a bit of supply, denying the 4th base. He's on 5 bases against 3, right? So the longer he can just keep sSak off of that base, the better for him. Okay. Oh, let me rewind so we can actually take a look. Okay, so see, he's kind of set up with the Psy Storms, the Goons, the Zealots. Now, those mines that we just saw laid to the bottom, those slow down reinforcements and everything, here sSak goes to try to clean this. This is not exactly the right type of formation that you want here, and not the right set of units. Like, we don't have that many Zealots here. If there were more, he might lose the game for a move like this. But obviously, he's got a good idea of what this army looks like. But look at how clumped it is, and you see these High Templars coming out. So you can see how painful that is. He's microing back reasonably well. The Psy Storm's doing pretty well, though. Oh, my God. And you can see just being clumped up. You really have to take your time against these High Templar-based compositions. So, at the end of that, we're down, right? The last time we checked the supply right before those speed shuttles dived in, it was like 162. Now we're at 130, okay? Against the 164 of Free. Obviously, he's got a bigger economy. He's got a lot of gateways. He's refilling pretty quickly. Okay, let's push this forward. And of course, sSak going to come over and try to retake this base. Free's just making it annoying for him here. This is not an army that can stop what sSak is doing. I'm actually surprised he stayed that long. None of that really matters. Okay, jumping forward. Let's get into a position where it's actually a little bit even once again. It's actually an excellent game, guys. Definitely do check this out over on the Afrika channel, the actual cast that Tasis and I did of it. But you can see, now, do you kind of see what I mean after you've seen a few of these attacks that come up? Like, look, now 129 against 140, and the thing is, Free is up a couple bases. It's very hard to actually kill the Terran player with this composition. It's good for harassment, it's good for whittling down armies, but to actually kill is another story. It's actually quite difficult to finish them here. Okay, so sSak has finally kind of retaken, or taken for the first time, that 4th base location. He's got a good, healthy amount of siege tanks, good amount of science vessels. Let's jump forward a little bit. Still more storm drops coming in. Ridiculously efficient there. Awesome storm drop. Laying a bunch of mines as he needs to. Mines absolutely all over the place. Rotating his army. Really good plays from sSak. There's like a lot of really good things that sSak does this game, right? Like, you can see why. Like, no one talks about sSak, I think, within the English-speaking scene. He's not really that popular. He doesn't really win tournaments. But when you actually talk to Korean pros, he is mentioned as one of the very best Terrans. And I feel like this game, you can see it, right? He did that faulty attack that we already went over, but he's actually fought himself back to, like, pretty close to even, right? Like, you can play 5 base versus 4 base. That is not a problem. And, of course, you can't get in there. Once again, hard to finish with this composition. I think you should always be getting into Arbiters after you gain control with this High Templar-based army. Okay, now, sSak, here we go. This is the last mistake that he makes. Well, basically, he made that one attack mistake, and this is where you're going to see the next one coming up very shortly. So it looks like we finally have Arbiters out of Free here. Free just kind of clearing some of the mines. Moving his army around. Right here, I think Free is starting to feel a lot of pressure if you look at it, right? Top left is not really very easy for Protoss to take and hold. Once Terran has this base, this 4th base location, that top left is really quick to push. And then he hasn't managed to take the other bottom right base, right? And you need at least one of those extra on top of Terran to really have a chance. So, sSak has finally maxed out at this point. He's got great upgrades. He's taken a lot of the map. But here's the thing, okay? He's on 4 base, and we're at 21 minutes. He needs a 5th base. That is actually what's crucial here. And this is something I've actually started to talk about more and more recently, something I've kind of actually noticed more recently, that as Terran, when you get into these later stages, when your main and natural are already gone and your 3rd base is starting to get low, even if Protoss throws their army away, you can't really counterattack. What you actually have to do is secure another base, because 1 base economy doesn't really do anything in Terran versus Protoss. 2 base does. So if you have 3-2 mech, and actually I think Gypsy said this to me several months ago, and it didn't completely connect as much as it does right now for me. But basically, if you're mining from 2 bases and you have 3-2 mech, you can do almost anything. But you gotta have 2 actual saturated mining bases. I don't remember. He didn't word it exactly like that, but that was the gist of it. Anyways, let's take a look at this. All right, so here comes sSak's attack once again. So he's got amazing upgrades, lots of science vessels. But what have I been saying over and over and over? This army, every time we see Free attack with it, he's losing huge chunks of army. Like, the harassment he's done has been great. The speed shuttle drops, well, maybe the one with like 6 into the main base was a little bit overkill. But we've seen a lot of very good High Templar drops, a lot of good harassment, a lot of good moves where he's pulling the army around with his shuttles, then attacking somewhere else and denying and slowing things down. But the full attacks we've seen out of Free have all failed. And they've kind of allowed sSak back into the game. And again, the full attack from sSak failed as well. The full attack that we saw on this ramp, if you're watching my mouse there. Okay? But now, once again, sSak is maxed, and I think he feels very similarly to how he felt with the first attack, where it's like, I've got an economy, I've got my upgrades. Free's army is not that good, but it's so good defensively against things like this, right? You're pushing all of your army through one area. It is clumped up. You haven't had the time to have everything spread out. So let's take a look at this actual battle. Throwing out an EMP. Okay, cool. Cool. Oh, that EMP seems like it misses. Storm's starting to go down. And here we go. Right on top of these tanks. He whittles down everything in the front. And just and he's like actually kind of lucky that that mine didn't wreck him. And he's taken a lot of storm damage. Okay? So a lot of this army has already been whittled down. Let's go ahead. He's going to unsiege, continue to go forward. And don't forget, a lot of damage there as well on those tanks. Even the ones that did not die have taken tons and tons and tons of damage. A lot of them very low, less than half health. And by the way, to kind of outline what I was saying before, even though this push felt good at the beginning, and it felt like we had a decent bank, look at the minimap. Look at this third base location. You can see that there is almost no minerals left here. So this is actually one base economy, which means he literally can't even produce off of all of his factories at once. Notice how his supply is kind of floating. He's not, he just doesn't have a big economy here. So when he's trying to attack and kill, what he really needs to be doing here is taking another base. So you see Free just biding his time, refilling his shuttles, getting ready once again. He's been on these 5 bases for quite some time. He's already damaged the tanks quite a bit. The tank's getting more spread. And don't forget, 3-2 is fantastic, but Stasis and Psystorm don't care about your upgrades at all. All right, let's see it. You can see he's picked off quite a few tanks here. Notice his supply, once again, really not moving very much. Free just continuing to whittle through. And you can see, right, he's got basically no army left. And his economy is very, very, very poor. Whereas, look, very healthy mineral patches. This base down there for Free is actually pretty healthy as well. See, that's all of his minerals. Nothing here at the third. The natural's gone. You can see he's got a ton of SCVs. Nowhere really to send them. Even the third base for Free. Because, again, when you take this many bases, both players are going to probably be on 65-ish workers. But spread on 5 bases doesn't just mine quicker. It mines longer because you're not as super saturated as the Terran player. So that, I think, basically shows what I wanted to talk about. We are out of money for sSak. Free is still mining on a 3-base saturation, right? Like, he's basically got 3 bases mining against 1. So that's 3 times as many bases, which is pretty crazy. As far as income goes. And you can see the supply starting to slip away from him. So this game, really, I feel like this is a really good example of a player playing very well sSak, but not identifying what was going on with the overarching, like, what do I call it? Maybe not overarching, but the concept of the High Templar based army, right? So I think that, like, a good lesson to take away from this is if Protoss is focusing on speed shuttles and High Templars, that is like almost a written agreement that you can't attack them and they can't attack you. All of Free's attacks, full attacks onto sSak failed. All of sSak's full attacks onto Free failed. And they kind of were like throwing the game back and forth at each other. Certainly, it would have been better for Free to maybe secure more bases. Instead of do those full-out attacks, maybe switch his tech up a little bit, or quicker arbiters, possibly think about something else, maybe carriers, maybe not on this map. And then for sSak, of course, both of those attacks, like he was ahead on the first attack. And the second attack, the game was pretty good. Like I think he had a little edge, but just because you have an edge doesn't mean you can kill your opponent. Anyways, this was a great game from ASL Season 12, and you should definitely check it out. Tasteless and I did cast it. It's over on the AfrikaTV channel. Yeah, and that's all I really wanted to go over on this particular game. Free does end up winning, of course. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.